Welcome to Postcarding the Stories, a gentle space where we explore simple ideas in slow, clear English. In this special 5-part series, we take you on a journey to discover something small in your pocket, but huge in the world, the U.S. dollar. Why is it trusted by so many? How did it become so powerful? And what does it mean for the future of money? Join us as we explore the power of the dollar. The power of the dollar. Part 1. What is the dollar and why does it matter? What is the U.S. dollar? The U.S. dollar, also called the USD, is the official currency of the United States. It is used every day by millions of Americans to buy food, pay for services, and save for the future. But the story doesn't end there. The dollar is not just for America. In fact, many countries around the world use the dollar to trade, save, or even pay workers. Some countries even accept the dollar alongside their own money. Why is that? The answer is simple, yet powerful: trust. People and businesses all over the world trust the dollar. They believe it will keep its value over time. They feel it is safe to use, even when their own money becomes weak or unstable. A global currency. Let's imagine this. You live in a country where your local currency is losing value. Prices go up every week. One day, bread costs 1,000 units of your money. Next week, it's 1,500. That's scary, right? So what do people do? They try to exchange their local money for something more stable. That something is often the U.S. dollar. Because the dollar is stable, people see it as a safe place to keep their savings. Even if they don't live in America, they want dollars because they know it won't lose value quickly. Businesses think the same way. When companies buy and sell goods like oil, gold, or coffee, they often use dollars. This is called trading in U.S. dollars. It makes international business easier because everyone agrees on one strong currency. For example, if a company in Brazil wants to buy oil from a company in Saudi Arabia, they will probably use dollars. It's just easier that way. No need to deal with currency changes or big risks. So, the U.S. dollar is not just America's money. It's the world's money in many ways. Why do people trust the dollar? Trust is not something that happens overnight. It takes time. The dollar became strong because the United States is seen as a powerful country, economically, politically, and even culturally. People know that the U.S. government is stable. The economy is large and active. Banks are strong. Laws protect people's money. Because of all these reasons, people believe that the dollar will be there tomorrow and the next day and the next year. That's very important when you're saving money, planning for your business, or trying to avoid a crisis. During difficult times, like wars, pandemics, or financial crises, many people quickly move their money into dollars. It's like running to a safe house during a storm. The dollar becomes their shelter. It's just a piece of paper, right? You might be thinking, but it's just paper. Yes, physically, the dollar is a piece of green paper with numbers and faces of presidents. But money is more than paper. It's an agreement. People agree that this paper has value. Because so many people believe in the value of the dollar, it has power. That belief gives it strength in ways we don't always see. And remember, not all paper is trusted equally, so money loses value fast. Some can't be used outside one small country. But the dollar? You can use it almost anywhere, from shops in Cambodia to hotels in Dubai. That is the power of belief. That is the power of the dollar. Coming next, now that we understand what the dollar is and why people use it around the world, it's time to go deeper. How did the dollar become so strong? It wasn't always this way. In the past, gold was king. Other currencies were more popular. Something changed. In the next part of our journey, we'll look at the history behind the dollar's rise. We'll learn about big moments in world history that made the dollar the #1 currency. So stay with me. The story is just beginning. The Power of the Dollar, Part 2, How the Dollar Became the World's Money. In Part 1, we learned that the U.S. dollar is more than just money used in America. It is trusted all over the world. But how did that happen? Why do people and countries around the world believe in the dollar? Let's take a little trip back in time. A world before the dollar. Before the U.S. dollar became so powerful, other forms of money ruled the world. In the 1800s and early 1900s, gold was the main source of value. Countries kept large amounts of gold in banks to show they were rich and trustworthy. Back then, many currencies were linked to gold. If you had a banknote, you could exchange it for a fixed amount of gold. This was called the gold standard. At the same time, the British pound was the most important money for international trade. Why? Because the British Empire was strong, rich, and connected to many parts of the world. But things began to change in the 20th century. World War changes everything. Then came World War I and World War II, two big wars that shook the world. These wars caused many countries to spend too much and lose economic power. The British economy became weaker. Many European countries were left with huge debts and damaged cities. But the United States was different. The U.S. joined World War II late, and the war didn't destroy American land. In fact, the U.S. economy became stronger during the war. Factories made weapons and supplies. The U.S. also lent money to other countries to help them fight and recover. By the end of World War II, the U.S. was the richest country in the world and had more than half of the world's gold. This moment changed everything. The birth of the dollar system. In 1944, leaders from 44 countries met in a place called Bretton Woods in the United States. They wanted to create a new global financial system. They needed something stable, something strong, something they could trust. The result? A new system where all major currencies were linked to the U.S. dollar, and the dollar was linked to gold. This made the dollar the center of global trade. If you wanted to buy oil or cars or coffee, you used dollars. If your country wanted to do business with others, you needed dollars. Slowly, the dollar became the most important currency in the world. From gold to trust. In 1971, the U.S. government made a big decision. It ended the link between the dollar and gold. This means you could no longer exchange dollars for gold. Was it the end of the dollar's power? No. By that time, people already trusted the dollar so much that they kept using it. Even without gold, the dollar remained strong. People believed in the U.S. economy, in its banks, and in its future. So the dollar moved from gold-backed to trust-backed. And trust is a powerful thing. Today's dollar. Now, over 60% of the world's foreign reserves are held in dollars. That means central banks in many countries keep dollars as their savings. More than 80% of international trade is done in U.S. dollars. Even if the U.S. is not part of a deal, companies use the dollar because it is safe and accepted everywhere. The dollar is not just paper. It is a symbol. It is history, power, trust, and connection. What's next? So now we know how the dollar became the world's most powerful currency. But is this good for everyone? What happens when the dollar becomes too strong? In Part 3, we'll look at the good and bad sides of dollar dominance. Who wins, who loses, and why it matters to you, even if you don't live in America. The Power of the Dollar. Part 3, the good and bad sides of a strong dollar. Now that we know how the dollar became the world's main currency, let's take a closer look at what that really means for countries, for businesses, and even for you. When a currency becomes as powerful as the US dollar, it brings many advantages, but also some problems. Let's explore both sides. The benefits of a strong dollar. First, let's talk about the positive things. For the United States, having the world's most used currency is a big advantage. Why? Because when other countries want to trade, they often need to buy dollars first. That means there is always a high demand for dollars. This demand makes it easier for the U.S. to borrow money. The government can sell bonds, and investors around the world will buy them, trusting the strength of the dollar. Also, when the dollar is strong, imported goods, like clothes, phones, and cars, can become cheaper for American consumers. That's because $1 can buy more of another country's currency. So Americans can get more for their money. Another benefit is stability. In times of global crisis, the dollar remains steady. People around the world see it as a safe haven, a safe place to keep their money. But not everything is perfect. The problems of a strong dollar. Let's now look at the challenges that come with dollar dominance. When the dollar is too strong, it can hurt exports. American products become more expensive for people in other countries. Imagine someone in Mexico wants to buy an American laptop. If the dollar is strong, that laptop may be too expensive. As a result, U.S. businesses may lose sales overseas. Also, countries that borrow in dollars may suffer. Many developing countries take loans in dollars because lenders trust the U.S. currency more. But if the dollar gets stronger, it becomes more expensive for them to pay back those loans. In Part 3, we'll look at the good and bad sides of dollar dominance. Who wins, who loses, and why it matters to you, even if you don't live in America. The power of the dollar. Part 3. The good and bad sides of a strong dollar. Now that we know how the dollar became the world's main currency, let's take a closer look at what that really means for countries, for businesses, and even for you. When a currency becomes as powerful as the US dollar, it brings many advantages, but also some problems. Let's explore both sides. The benefits of a strong dollar. First, let's talk about the positive things. For the United States, having the world's most used currency is a big advantage. Why? Because when other countries want to trade, they often need to buy dollars first. That means there is always a high demand for dollars. This demand makes it easier for the U.S. to borrow money. The government can sell bonds, and investors around the world will buy them, trusting the strength of the dollar. Also, when the dollar is strong, imported goods, like clothes, phones, and cars, can become cheaper for American consumers. That's because $1 can buy more of another country's currency. So Americans can get more for their money. Another benefit is stability. In times of global crisis, the dollar remains steady. People around the world see it as a safe haven, a safe place to keep their money. But not everything is perfect. The problems of a strong dollar. Let's now look at the challenges that come with dollar dominance. When the dollar is too strong, it can hurt exports. American products become more expensive for people in other countries. Imagine someone in Mexico wants to buy an American laptop. If the dollar is strong, that laptop may be too expensive. As a result, U.S. businesses may lose sales overseas. Also, countries that borrow in dollars may suffer. Many developing countries take loans in dollars because lenders trust the U.S. currency more. But if the dollar gets stronger, it becomes more expensive for them to pay back those loans. What is economic power? Countries don't only fight with guns or armies. Sometimes they use money to apply pressure. This is called economic power. And because the dollar is used in so many places, the U.S. has a very special kind of control. How? Most of the world's trade, about 80%, is done in U.S. dollars. And many banks, even outside the U.S., use the American financial system to send and receive money. This gives the U.S. the ability to watch, stop, or block transactions it doesn't agree with. It also gives the U.S. the power to punish countries or groups that break international rules. These punishments are called sanctions. What are sanctions? Sanctions are actions taken by one country to stop another country from doing something wrong, like starting wars, supporting terrorism, or breaking human rights. One common type of sanction is to block access to the dollar. That means a country or a company can no longer trade using dollars. This is a big deal because most global trade happens in dollars. Let's look at an example. Real-world example, Iran and Russia. In recent years, countries like Iran and Russia have faced U.S. sanctions. American leaders believed these governments were doing harmful things, so they were cut off from the dollar system. What happened next? Iran and Russia had a very hard time selling oil, buying goods, or moving money. Banks didn't want to do business with them because they were afraid of breaking U.S. rules. In short, no dollar access equals no easy business. This shows how the dollar can be used not just for trade, but also for power and punishment. The risks of dollar power. At first, this might sound smart and fair, but there are also risks. Some countries feel angry or scared. They don't want the U.S. to control so much of the world's money. So they try to find other ways to trade, using euros, Chinese yuan, or even digital money like cryptocurrency. This is called de-dollarization, a slow movement to reduce the world's use of dollars. It's still small, but it's growing. Why? Because no one wants to feel controlled. And when one country holds too much power, others may look for ways to escape it. A tool with responsibility. Using the dollar as a political tool is a big responsibility. It must be used with care. If countries feel the dollar is being used too aggressively, they may lose trust in it. And remember, trust is what gives money its value. So, while the dollar gives the U.S. great influence, also requires wisdom and balance. The power of the dollar. Part 5. What is the future of the dollar? We've come a long way in our journey to understand the power of the dollar. We've talked about its history, its benefits, its problems, and even how it's used as a political tool. Now, let's look ahead. What will happen to the dollar in the future? Will it always stay strong? Or is it possible that another currency will take its place? Let's explore some big questions and possible answers. Can the dollar stay number one? For many years, the U.S. dollar has been the king of currencies. It's trusted, stable, and widely used. But nothing lasts forever. Some experts believe the dollar will stay strong for many more decades. Why? Because there is no strong replacement right now. Other currencies like the euro or Chinese yuan are used, but they don't have the same level of global trust. But as the world becomes more connected and more competitive, this story may begin a new chapter. Just like empires rise and fall, currencies rise and fall too. And one day, we may tell a new story about the next world currency. But for now, the dollar still holds the crown. Thank you for listening to Postcard English Stories. We hope this series gave you a better understanding of the dollar and the world it shapes. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And leave us a comment to let us know what topic you'd love to explore next. Until next time, keep learning, keep dreaming, and remember, small stories can teach big lessons.